All right, you bunch of yahoos, strap yourselves in for another episode of Dan and Don's Toxic Masculinity.
In other words, shut up, sit up, and pay attention. I'm gonna let you in on a little inside secret of Dan Severn's MMA career.
It's
They're not allowed. They're not allowed. Did you hear me? Okay, you're not allowed. I have to always say it before Mr. Frye gets his headset on there because I'm sure to take a jab or two here in a process. I'll wait. I'll pause a moment there. Okay, Earth to Don, are you there? Earth to Don.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right, because I want to make sure that you hear this. So this you understand this that, but all through my MMA career, the final week or two prior to a match, I would be putting multiple applications of like baby lotion, stuff like that on my face. So that, you come the day of the fight, you walk in, you can't put stuff on your face, but let's face it, it's in your skin, it's in your pores. And as your body heats up, your face is like smooth like glass. And I actually think that it helped. I think it helped to slide a few punches off.
I always use bag bomb. The other bomb.
Well, explain to listeners what I mean. I know what bag bomb is, but most people are not going to know what bag bomb is.
You lost me on that one.
Bag bomb, it comes in a little green can. You can get it at the drugstore stuff, but it's for
drugstore. But typically you would find this at like a family farm or fleet, more like an agricultural type store that has tractor supplies, things of that nature that you'll find, bag bomb. And like Don said, it's to apply on cows' udders, which most city folk don't even know what an udder is. Time. So it's a cow's tit. Okay, a cow's tit.
I'm a San Diego boy. I don't think we had any cows roaming around anywhere.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, here you enjoy this little story because the coming of age. You're in that teenage. Coming of age time, and then it's kind of like going, well, you're starting to date other girls, you're becoming aware of girls, stuff like this, and girls are starting to blossom and bud some boobies and things of that nature. And then it's kind of like, the buddy stuff like that, you're talking to each other. It's like, are you getting the first base and stuff like that, cop in the field or something like that? And then my buddies are talking to me, so like going, like, what? Like, well, what's first base? They're like, you felt a female's breast. I go, oh hell, I felt female's breasts for the last decade. They're like, going, what? I go, well, granted, she's got four nipples, but
I got them, man. I'll touch them.
It's kind of like going, I don't think a female would care the way at the fight. You got flip it off at the top, and then you got to run the fingers down so you run the milk right on it. That's the old technique. Cut off at the top, run it down to you get the squirt, 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 squirt.
It works the same.
That's probably one of the reasons why I had such a good grip there early on in my amateur wrestling career. Now, Don had a pretty good grip there too, but it wasn't because he was milking cows.
No, because I was milking women.
Earlier about Don's hands off.
I figure I better jump on that one before you jump. You throw a hand grenade in my direction.
Yeah. I was already
the whole podcast. We just look for different opportunities.
You were milking cows. I was grabbing women's tits.
Okay. So, are we going to actually talk about something more serious here yet? Or are we just going to keep doing this little bantering around here? I mean, we got Doug Wheeler here right now. That's in the surgical supplies. What exactly, when you talk about surgical supplies, what are you talking about there?
Yeah, it's a pretty unknown field of work, I guess one might say. Not many people really know what goes on when you're going in to get, let's say, spine or orthopedic surgery. But one important part of that team is the, surgical consultant from the, let's say, per se industry side, somebody that's more of a tool expert. Because, if you're looking at, in spine surgery is probably what I had the most amount of experience in. Burn surgery was also quite an experience as well, but we can get to that later. But, let's say for any, small lumbar, let's say a worst case scenario, you're getting a lumbar fusion. There might be 200-300 unique instruments that are involved with getting that surgery to completion. And it's paramount to have somebody that's an expert on the tool side of things. You have the
Okay.
surgeon that's obviously the expert in what's going on with the human body, relating to the patient, what their experience has been, what got them to the operating table that day. But, you're going to also have a number of support staff, whether or not it's, a physician assistant or a first assist that's helping out with certain instruments throughout the surgery. But again, when you're talking about a couple hundred unique screwdrivers that might be used for, unique instruments that might be used for any one surgery, you need somebody that's an expert there. And my group, Olympic Surgical, spans a lot of different specialties. And the real opportune point that we have in being an independent distributor and not representing any one large medical device company is you can create kind of a menu for surgeons of any specialty where, they make unique considerations. A lot of, let's say spine surgeons have so many different preferences on what they learned from where they went to school, where they did fellowship, and they all have different schools of thought. And anybody that's ever seen or gotten a consult from a doctor on, problems with their spine, you ask 10 different surgeons what they would do, they'll give you you'll hear 10 different answers because nobody's going to do it the same way. So to be able to bring
but they're all the correct way and the best.
and correct. And they're also going to talk shit about everybody else's way. Oh, that guy's a hack. He went to Johns Hopkins, but I went to Stanford. It's like, the ego in spine and neurosurgeons is definitely one of the highest. But again, if you're, representing any one medical device company, you're kind of pigeonholed to just representing what that company, has within their armamentarium. Let's say a Medtronic or a DePuy Synthes or a Smith and Nephew. You're kind of chained to them. But our group again, I guess plays a little bit of a middleman type role, but in that consultative approach where we represent, 8 to 12 spine companies, orthopedic companies, wound care companies at any one point in time, and can create that value offering for a surgeon. If you're running into, this unique circumstance, we've got a solution for you here. You run into a completely different unique circumstance, we've got a solution for you there. So they can.
So do you actually could consult with the doctors and so you understand what kind of equipment they're going to be using, again, surgical tool wise, and do you put like all those specific tools? Because I know everything's going to be sterilized. So is this something that all this equipment comes completely sterilized, but it comes inside this bag, so you know that this doctor, he likes this kind of a kit. So you put this whole kit together, and you know that this is going to be good for Dr. X over here, but you may have to do something different for Dr. Y over there. But because they do so many different operations, you should know that Dr. X is going to need this again and again for a spine surgery, but he might need something a little bit differently for the neurosurgery, because each one's were different type of operations, so it's a little bit different type of apparatuses that would be needed. I'm trying to dumb it down for me, but then also for some of our listeners, because with a podcast called Toxic Masculinity, we have a few knuckle draggers out there as well that and again, I'm looking at present company not included on that one. See, and you thought I was going to set you up there, Mr. Frye, didn't you? Huh? So I gave you a pass.
You're being very polite today, Smith.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, will he return that favor? Oh no, baby, he'll be throwing me underneath that short yellow bus here real quick. But that's okay. That's what keeps me on my toes at times. But
I guess
other than those ballerina classes I had way back when. But hey, that was a whole different life. So, no, I mean, have you ever had a chance to? I know sometimes that these doctors, they'll actually have like public surgery where they'll have other doctors at the training and other people. Have you ever had a chance to actually observe any of these operations?
Well, that's again a unique and fun part of the space is I look to be in every single one of the surgeries. So,
oh, really?
It's on the back end. 80% of the work is probably in logistics and delivery. And really, like you had mentioned, having an innate understanding for each unique surgeon's approach and how they like to do things. Because for one, you're dealing with tremendously smart individuals that have a high level of income, a high level of expectation, and they also have a lot of
high level ego.
But they're also on the line for a lot these days. One of the biggest expenses for any, doctor or surgeon these days is malpractice. Right. So, I mean, if you do something wrong in the operating room, you put the wrong implant in, you do it the wrong way, you could be on on the line for millions of dollars.
Well, you should if you
regularly.
fuck up like that, you know.
Correct.
You
So, I
shouldn't
mean,
get a free pass.
there is no higher level of expectation in delivery that I've come across in a space than, you know, the surgical operating room. I mean, some say it's anywhere from $500 to $800 a minute as far as the cost of keeping an operating room going, with paying all the staff and all the overhead. So if there's a mistake that's made, somebody's losing their head, or you're getting replaced. You're getting replaced by another person that could do it better. And when you're talking about, you know, implants that can create a sizable amount of revenue and business, there's a high level of stress and expectation. But the delivery is getting into the OR day of surgery. Again, most patients don't realize that there's going to be a lot of times somebody that's a vendor or not an employee of the hospital that's in that operating room with you, that's coaching the doctor.
Oh, really?
And the expectation from that surgeon is whoever's had the chance and the pleasure to take that role, better know that surgery just about as well as they do.
Right.
You know, again, they're not going to expect you to know, blood pressure and what's going on, those sorts of considerations, but you should know every part of that surgery, step by step, what tool is needed for it, what resources is needed from everybody else in the operating room. And you got to kind of be a smoother. You got to make, if it's a stressful environment because it's not going well, surgeon's gonna be mad at you. It's kind of also a weird spot. You're the only person in the room that doesn't work for the hospital, so they don't have to answer to HR by treating you like garbage.
Right.
Especially if you deserve it.
Well, I mean, the gentleman sitting across, I'll use that word gentleman kind of loosely right there, but the gentleman sitting across from me right now has had lots of time understanding the different types of kits that were probably have been used on him. I don't think Don can walk through a metal detector anymore. I think they got to take him off on the side to wand him on down, because he probably goes off ding, ding, ding every time for all the metal he's got into me. And they couldn't just put in normal rods because he done breaks them, and then they got to put in some high level rods to where I don't know how what they put in concrete rebar. I don't know.
Yeah,
rebar.
rebar.
Rebar in the back now.
Yeah, rebar.
Old school iron.
Yeah. Fuck, I broke the titanium. I broke the cobalt steel.
Well, you broke a cobalt chrome rod.
Yeah.
Again, some people should.
Metal.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
And it's funny that we're kind of brothers under the knife. I had a spine surgery myself when I was 15. I was 23 years ago. And
at 15?
At 15. So I had a growth deformity. They call it Schurman's kyphosis. Pretty much only happens in boys. Usually girls are going to more so run into scoliosis, where your spine ends up going kind of side to side. I started to kind of collapse forward just from my spine growing so quickly upwards, it just couldn't even support itself. So they did a T4 to L2. So my thoracic number 4 level all the way down to crossing over into my lumbar spine. A little bit of an older school metal is stainless steel. You don't use that anymore. I've been lucky though, because I'm not an animal like Tom Frye, where you're going to be breaking these rods loose.
Well, I like to test gravity,
What movie is that line from? I am not an animal, I'm a human being. Do you remember that one?
The Elephant Man.
Yeah, there you go. I was waiting for a comeback like that there, Don. I go, I am not an animal, I am a human being. Yeah, the Elephant Man. Again, that'd be like trivia if any of our people watching there, go look at the Elephant Man. That was actually based on a true story of a gentleman with a huge deformity at birth.
Is that elephantitis?
No, I don't know. I thought elephantitis is when your balls get real big. TC
balls,
fly.
Your face, your nose.
Get bit by a TC fly and your balls swell up like a.
Wait, where do we
go?
Oh,
that's not just be too masculine.
No.
Oh.
That's what we need. Yeah. That's what we need is our.
We should get a picture of that, because that doesn't mean, because when you say that they could go, they said that sometimes their testicles get so big, they're actually they have to carry them around in a wheelbarrow.
Yeah, like a 50-gallon barrel drum, they get that big. Yeah.
I
mean,
left
that's
mine by the door. I'll be picking it up on the way out.
Yeah, it's like you see the South Park episode where they're bouncing on their balls going through town so they can get pot.
How else are you gonna get it?
Medicinal.
wow. So, okay, so I mean, well, I mean, okay, you had this at 15, so I mean, did everything go good? I mean, are you have to be careful about certain things?
And I've always been on the side of, testing those limits. Of course you have, the guidance that's given to you by a very conservative surgeon and or doctor at a young age that says don't ever participate in things. I'm a little bit more stubborn than that. So even at college, played some college football, mostly warmed the bench, but I got in there a few times.
Well, again, that's incredible again for having back surgery. I mean, did you bother to tell the coach that?
Well, I did. So out of high school, my goal was going to the Marine Corps, and I tried my best to hide that from them, but they did get pretty angry when they found out that I'd already gone to boot camp, and then they got my x-rays back and they're like, what in the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about that, little guy. Don't worry about that.
That's my peanut.
No. Well, I mean, I think that's very admirable there, Doug. I mean, honestly, because you had to go and you had to serve the country, and you didn't want something like that to be a hindrance right there. Because to me, everybody can serve into some type of capacity doing things.
They had a pretty hard line, though. I don't think of any branch of the military that I didn't apply for, even the reserves and the Coast Guard, and I get seasick as hell. But it was a little insulting in the end when they sent me back my draft card and said, you're good. I was like, okay, you guys are pretty serious about this.
Well, again, I think that's a very admirable trait that you actually did, because we have sort of a scarcity of that in today's era. We don't have very many people that are looking to go into military. We don't have people that are looking to go into the skilled trades. Of course, we don't have people that are looking for jobs, period.
A lot of free
through that, through the little COVID pandemic, yeah, I'll use that word. Maybe the COVID caper could be another thing you could say there with it. But during that era of the COVID, a lot of people just seem like the government's trying to tell you that the best place to be is stay home, and we'll take care of you. We'll send you checks. Now, was it who did we say what president was that? Was it that said that some of the most disturbing words is "I'm from the government and we're here to help"?
Ronald Reagan, buddy.
Ronald Reagan. Yeah. Oh, he's wearing that. I should know. You're wearing a shirt right now. But again, that's pretty bad when an actual president will actually say something like that as well.
That was one of the more wide opening things when I went to Europe for the first time. I got to hang out in Germany. That's really where I saw that thought process fall into play, where you get to such a control mongering by the government, and you disincentivize capitalistic behaviors to government subsidy, and there's no incentive to work, and you're running into individuals that are they're actually have W-2 work. They're working for a corporation and they're doing 4-5 hours a week of work because the expectation set so low and everything else is being subsidized by the government. Like the eye opener was when a friend had asked if I noticed how much Germans walk. I was like, I don't understand why we're pointing that out. I didn't notice anything. Why do you ask? Well, Germany's been rated as the country with the highest amount of hours done per day of walking. So I don't know why that's of significance. Like, oh, well, we do 7 to 8 hours or something like that. I was like, aren't you doing anything else with your day?
Yeah, really.
There's just no incentive to produce. And I think that's, where our government is obviously looking, we obviously were founded a long time and stayed strong to the capitalistic approach of how this country was
Formed, you bet.
Yeah.
But that doesn't allow for folks to maintain that control or take all that money from you. And like you mentioned, people are getting dumber and dumber by the day, and they're looking to give up more and more of their rights to somebody to just manage it for them.
Right.
Well, I mean, you said you've been to Germany, but if anyone travels outside of the United States, going to other countries, you're going to find out in other countries they walk more, they ride more, bicycles more. I mean, it's they're actually most countries are way healthier than Americans
because
because
we're working, we're doing all the work for the fucking planet. The United States taxpayers paying all them sons of bitches to ride their bike and have a leisurely life and go have a 3-hour lunch, a 6-hour dinner. But we got to eat at the fucking fast food restaurant because we only got 20 minutes in between, jobs. Shit.
The pace in which so many people in this country are just trying to keep up to survive
Right.
is not healthy.
right.
It's not healthy. And it leads to a lot of those bad decisions. You're talking about, after surgery, what are going to be the tips and tricks? Keep yourself healthy. I remember when I was, going through a bad divorce. I was pushing 3, or I was a little over 3.
Never heard of a good one.
Never heard of a good one? I think Louis C.K. said that. Don't ever be sad for somebody that's going through a divorce, because never 2 happy people have ever gone through one.
Right.
But overweight, depressed, just depressed across the board, not taking care of my body. My back was hurting all the time. Every day I was getting up, moving around like Don. But you change up your daily habits, your approaches, and your health, shave some weight off, back feels fine now.
Yeah, it is, but it's not. You have to retrain yourself. You have to start eliminating the bad habits. And a lot of times it's not easy to simply just go cold turkey. Sometimes you got to slowly start to wean yourself off, knowing that you're going to have bad days where you're going to fall backwards. So you can't just beat yourself on up. You simply got to know tomorrow's another day. Get right back on that and see if you can get right back on that and do well with it.
And I feel like a lot of people think that they're, especially, I don't want to be as corny and sound as bringing up social media and all the problems it brings with it, but they're looking at these elite level athletes, or they're trying to keep up with the Dan Severn diet of when you were actively professionally competing. And
are you trying to say that they savored the buffets? I mean, because God knows me. I mean, I love a good old fashioned buffet.
Yeah. Cheap one.
Oh, Don, I told you to never use the C word around me. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Tony,
fiscally
conservative. Don's being mean to me, Tony.
Fiscally conservative, John.
Don, stop picking on Dan.
Nobody give you a fucking speaking role here.
We're gonna have to give Tony. We're gonna have to give you a referee shirt there and throw yellow flags because give Don a timeout, okay? Would you? He's being mean and rude to me. So it's like our military now.
Well, we all
be having bad.
You need a stress card.
Yeah, give you a stress. Yeah, it's just like the military.
Good.
You can have a bad day. The sergeant could be yelling at you, and you pull out your stress card. And go, Sarge, you're yelling at me. I'm having a tough day. Tony's going to have to be the referee shirt, going to have to pull out stress cards to keep Don from picking on Dan.
Yeah.
Dan's favorite C word is coupon.
What a clipper.
Oh, he finally got one in. It's been 2.5 years, and he finally got one. You get partial credit for that one.
And see, did he even unload that one on you there, Don? I mean, good.
Oh,
He unloaded on me.
He said Dan on Dan, yeah.
Yeah, so there. You can just when I was looking for some backup there. E2 Brute. I get stabbed in the back here now. Huh. That's why you very rarely see me down in Tucson anymore. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's because of gas prices. Shit.
Oh.
I'm happy about it. It was 60 cents higher up in Phoenix.
Really?
Yeah. I'm gonna fill up down here.
Yeah, you better fill up. Yeah. Take a couple gas cans. Yeah.
I wish I still have, I'd be saving more if I still have my truck, but somebody made it a little bit of an idiot mistake. It definitely wasn't me, and contaminated the fuel tank right when the United Auto Workers are on strike. And apparently Dodge just doesn't want to make any parts for it. So it's
really
stuck in Vegas for the foreseeable future. I'm like, okay, it needs a new fuel system. There's got to be some left in the plant. You got to be using the same fuel system as last year.
Right.
Apparently not.
So is that home, is Vegas your home base?
I actually just relocated out of the Phoenix area.
Oh, Phoenix. Okay, from Vegas to
know,
Phoenix.
The adage I say is everybody says 3 days in Vegas is good and you feel exhausted and want to come home. I did 10 years. So
Wow.
it'll stack up.
Well, I mean, well, honestly, if you, well, there's a lot of beautiful areas in Vegas or just outside of Vegas. There's a lot of beautiful areas. I mean, I've been to Hoover Dam because I passed through there so many times from Arizona going to Vegas. You know, stopping off to see the Hoover Dams. You know, there's a lot of cool things to see and do. It's everyone wants to go just to Vegas just to see Vegas. The old strip again. It's been a while. The old strip used to be really something to see, but more and more of those old casinos are going bye bye, and new ones are popping up.
Fremont Street gets a little rough these days on the weekend. You go there on a Friday, Saturday night, you're going to see some pretty undesirables.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't bring your kids out there too. There's going to be some street vendors there's definitely going to be some topless ones and not the ones that you want to see.
Yeah, they in their middle of their transition.
They're transitioning. They're the rejects from not only the strip clubs to the truck stops, and they end up in Fremont Street.
Whoa! The bar kept going down and down, and I think someone dropped it, stepped on it.
But you're right. Las Vegas does have, outside of the strip, anybody that lives there is not usually spending too much time on the strip. For one, I mean, it's expensive to do stuff. I mean, you look at the tickets for U2 at that new Sphere. I mean, that's breaking the bank right there. So it's a lot of the folks that are coming in to see that, which is it looks like a second to none experience, are coming internationally, and they know that you're going to be dropping $5-6 grand in 3 days.
Damn.
Ready to spend some money.
Do you hear that, Severn? Can you imagine something like that out of your in your lifestyle?
I kind of missed part of the pun right there, but I know it was at my expense here somehow. So would you like to repeat that? I didn't have my hearing aid turned up. Go ahead there, Mr. Frye, again.
People going to Vegas and spending $5 or $6 grand in 24-hour period.
I would have a high fever. I would have a high fever if that ever happened. I would be certifiably insane at that point if I had done something like that.
Yeah.
A little bit hard to spend that in Coldwater Creek, right?
Coldwater, Michigan. Coldwater.
There we go.
Yeah, it's like a cold drink of water, Coldwater, Michigan.
Come on now, you're putting it a little bit out in the urban area when you add the creek to it.
I got some family that's in Farmington, up outside of Detroit. No, I remember going.
Yeah, no, I mean that's actually a nice area, very nice area, Farmington, Michigan.
I know it was way out of my league.
Yeah, no, there's every state has some nice richier type of areas, and then there's other areas that's not quite as desirable. No type of touristy type of destinations by any means. A couple years back, they were doing water testing in Flint, Michigan, and that's where Flint, Michigan made all the papers because of their water having some of the highest contaminants ever.
It was downhill from the Severn farm, huh? So what made you want to get into the medical field anyway?
So we were talking about earlier of obviously military not working out, and then you're just trying to kind of figure out your way when you're 18, long story, but parents weren't too involved at that point. So I had to be my own guidance, and went up to the Bay Area to go to San Jose State, and was thinking, I guess the next logical thought would be go into law enforcement. I was looking at either federal law enforcement or local. Again, long story short, I ended up finishing my undergrad and first master's degree in criminology before I realized it's not the space for me.
Yeah.
Just didn't want to get into monitoring people all the time, writing tickets, just inserting myself into people's life. More so just leave me the hell alone.
Right.
And at that time, I was working at, I had gotten hired on at Four Seasons and fairly young age, and kind of worked up from the ground, and they put me into a group sales position. And I really liked the aspect of sales. I mean, had to take it upon myself at a pretty young age to learn how to communicate and try to interact with individuals. And that was my first opportunity. Got to go out into the Silicon Valley marketplace and make partnerships on behalf of one of the fanciest hotel chains in the world, and it wasn't very hard convincing individual corporations and whatnot to want to have their employees stay at Four Seasons. Usually they're VPs and above. They weren't putting their schlubs at Four Seasons. And kind of graduated from there. I went over, I ended up getting picked up by Enterprise Car Rental, and went in through their track. I always joke about, if anybody's ever seen Step Brothers, Will Ferrell always makes a epic joke about Enterprise where, you know what, they give you the tools to be your own boss and really succeed. Go ahead, Dan, cut you off.
No, I was gonna say that was my number one rental car place I went to was Enterprise. I mean, I think the first time I took the car off the lot, I brought it back like a week later. I had put like, I don't know, 5,000 or more miles onto it. They were shocked. And they're like going, where did you go? I go, well, it might be easier if I told you where I didn't go. And then I go, that's what I was looking for, unlimited mileage. Because if you get hit by the mile, it's rather costly with it, but unlimited mileage. But then they found out kind of who I was and what I was doing, and then they thought it was pretty cool.
It's amazing how fast the life of a rental car is. You might have a car that gets delivered one day, and 4 months later it's at 45,000 miles, and it's got to be sold. Just because you get everybody's going to take a trip.
Yeah.
Rarely do people just float around town with it.
Yeah.
But I guess continuing that, Enterprise surprisingly is a feeder into the medical sales space. There's a couple other companies that were notorious for it, like Ricoh Copiers and Xerox. And I think their thought process in the medical space is that if you talk and just get out there and work, the products are going to sell themselves, especially with the amount of funding behind it. So they were looking for people that had just a little bit of work ethic. And if you're, willing to work at Enterprise, which if anybody's ever worked there, it ends up being a lot of hours. Usually, I don't remember many weeks where I wasn't working less than 60. You don't have a lot of resources available to you to deliver something, a great service to the customer. You got a lot of stuff that's going on in the background. You got to get really creative, and it's really hard to get promoted. It's a very unique company as far as how they train and build up people. But long story short, I got a call from a pharmaceutical company, and they said, how would you like to double your money and work half as many hours? And we'll give you a company credit card and a car and all those frills. I said,
oh, come on. You mean to tell me that's all it took? That's all it took.
That's all it took.
No bribery.
But pharmaceuticals, and that could be a topic in itself these days, especially with a lot of documentaries that are coming out about that industry and everybody that's got their frustrations with medicines that they're on, and the amount of costs that are associated with them. I wasn't a big fan of pharmaceuticals, but somehow in that I realized that I enjoyed the medical space, and I just started keep my eyes open and running into salespeople outside of hospitals that were wearing scrubs, and I'm like, it's not a doctor, it's somebody in between. Start asking questions. It's like, hey, how not many people know about this space, but you could be a surgical rep in the operating room, getting to teach, let's say at the time, the one that really appealed with me was spine surgeons because of my own experience with my spine. You could be in there teaching them and making a great living at it. Wait a second. And it's still sales? Let's give that a shot. And been there ever since. It's, in the last 7-8 years that I've been in the space, I've gotten to work with so many different specialties that it's maybe just a resource to a lot of people that I know. Mm-hmm. And it's nice even more so now to be taking that extra focus in the regenerative medicine space, which, cash is king. Cash businesses are always funner to be in. Anybody that deals with cash is a lot happier in where they are, and patients are a lot of times a lot happier. So it's kind of nice to be focusing on that new space.
So what do you think about this new the new currency? I can't lost my train of thought. Jeez. I just shit the bed, man.
I've done that a few times. Once last night.
How they want to change the dollar and get rid of it.
Yeah,
China
make it all currency,
digital
currency.
Digital currency. Yeah.
I got I don't know if it was something dad or somebody within the family said, if you can't explain your business in 30 seconds or less, then you don't really understand it. And I'm not sure I'm going to believe it. I don't know how many people I've had tried to explain me blockchain, and it just goes on and on and on, and they seem more confused in the end, and just how fast stuff is eroding. I mean, look at how fast NFTs came and gone, which I still don't understand. Like, buy an electronic picture.
Yeah.
And that's somehow electronic art.
Yeah, again, I still remember seeing the picture of the monkeys. I kept thinking, well, this is the electronic picture number one of the monkey, but we're going to sell you picture number two of the monkey. I'm thinking, but I don't actually tangibly have nothing in my hand. So I did not understand any of that.
Look at how fast Mike Tyson came in and out with the angry pigeons, or what was it called? This was the pigeons. There's something to have to do with the messenger pigeons.
Yeah.
But I mean, he must have been talking about for 6 months before it completely died.
Really?
I know that.
Okay. I mean, when you hear
I
about
missed that whole business experience.
When you start hearing about the background behind, BlackRock and, the Schwab family and what they're doing, and the smart billionaires at the international level, I mean, anything is possible. And the writing you can definitely see on the wall, and there's definitely a few conspiracy theory movements and or truth. There it is. Yeah. What was it called? The Fighting Pigeons?
It's called it said the Iron Pigeons.
Iron Pigeons.
Yeah, Iron Pigeons.
Iron Mike. Makes sense.
Well, again, Iron Mike, Iron Pigeon. Actually, I see the correlationship now.
What were you supposed to do?
That's 500,000.
Nothing. That's it, Don. Give me my money.
That's $500,000 just to look at this picture. Huh?
And if you change that belt to red, it's going to be worth 600,000.
Yeah. If you're dumb enough to
checkbook,
yeah, I don't carry a check. Sorry, don't have a pen.
Oh, cash is fine.
My crayon melted in the truck.
Okay, but Doug, more into this regenerative medicine. So I mean, I know when we started in the beginning there, but do you dabble? Does your company dabble in anything with the stem cells, the lasers, and there's lighting. There's even these healing lights that I've seen in the past that you can set for different type of settings and what it does for topical type applications for promoting healing and that. Again, with the same thing with the lasers, but I know I missed a few other things. I mean, hyperbaric chambers are becoming more and more the thing, especially with post surgery because of just oxidization of the body. That just better healing, more complete type of healing. So these are things that again, yours truly will be going underneath the knife here rather soon, and I'm already lining up a few different things to where I have a laser at my availability. I will have one of these light machines at my availability. I will have a hyperbaric chamber at my availability. So I want to heal quickly and be able to do things I can't really do as well now because of pain.
I know whenever I'm in the hospital, I'll stick in the nasal cannula, and jack it up. And the nurse will come in and say, "You don't need that." And yeah, you do, lady. Yeah, you do.
The nasal cannula?
Yeah. Just, for oxygen.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, what do you use that? Because oxygen fucking helps, heal.
I mean, we touched on a few different things there. I mean, but hyperbaric chambers, because I know you're a huge advocate, Dan. We had talked about that in the past, and you've had experience in the past with really delivering that to more of a home setting or a performance setting for athletes. Yep. But I think probably a large amount of adoption for hyperbarics is in wound care and probably neurodegenerative diseases, your Parkinson's, your strokes. But, when you're talking about the healing aspect after surgery, I mean, you got a growing amount of people internationally, but a lot in this country that have, diabetic wounds, or just wounds that are non-healing because of a series of other comorbidities that are making it challenging. And you've got wounds.
Well, you hit on the big one right there with diabetes, because diabetes sometimes you just get a little bit more ulcers and things of that nature on your body. So yeah.
I think the biggest wounds, I don't know by percentage in the US, are DFUs and VLUs. So your diabetic foot ulcers, just because of inconsistency with your blood sugars and your, pancreatic sufficiency. A lot of times you just get these wounds that start to open up, and it's sad. Like we don't realize when going out and walking around, you're seeing the normal population, but we've got such a growing percentage of people that are in, long-term acute care hospitals, skilled nursing facilities that'll be there for years and years and years.
Yes.
And they don't go
Even
out.
something like the most basic, like a bed sore, just because you've been laying there for so long, you start to get bed sores. You got to help rotate this person up, back, forth. And now they're getting, even some of the beds are more like a massagey type bed or an oscillating type of bed, just so that it helps create a little bit more circulation for you,
100%. I mean, when you're laying in one position, you're afflicted by a lot of different, challenges, with your health. You're just going to sit in bed all day. You're not motivated. Your family's not coming to see you.
Right.
You're not taking care of, your daily intake of food. Maybe you're on a feeding tube, and those wounds will stay open for years. And people, they're just getting larger and larger. They're spreading. And, there's only so many times you can scrape a scab off and put a Band-Aid on, and it's just going to keep on growing.
Right.
You got to look at things like, advanced wound tissues. And that's kind of where we started talking, where the regenerative capabilities of birth tissues, I guess we could call it as an umbrella, became kind of realized. I don't know if wound care was the first space, but, using amniotic sheets to try to heal wounds across the body has become known as one of the, first line alternatives when somebody's not healing, because podiatrists, wound care docs, plastic surgeons know that, that property of that amniotic tissue might give the ability to try to heal that wound. It might take a while, but it's going to be faster than when your body never would. And, if, sometimes that can get a little bit expensive. Hyperbarics will come in there, where, again, I don't know a lot of the science of hyperbarics. I know it's definitely depending on the depth and the amount of, I let Dan, you speak to that one as far as.
Well, no, I mean, I'll just say this: you hit the nail on the head. You can have a very economical commercial model, that I should say the actual home model, but the more and more that you're looking for, the higher the pressures that you want to go, you have to go more and more to a metal type of container. But there's hyperbarics that you can get out there that for just a few $1,000s, you can have your home kit that would it'll give you a great deal of benefit. Just I used a lot of it when I was doing a couple different training camps, to where once I do a training camp, but then go into an EECP machine. That was one of the other things, the modalities I was utilizing. But then I go onto one machine for 1 hour, and then I would go into the hyperbaric machine for another hour, and it was like one just got all kinds of blood flow going to it, and then the other one was like oxidization of the blood. And it's like going, what a 1-2 combination that I think a lot of people just are not aware of. But more and more of these are more prevalent or needed as one gets older, because the reality is, as one gets older, are you really going to exercise? Are you going to do all the walking? Are you going to go to the gym and do things? Because as you get older, you start feeling like, especially like a man, I can't lift the same kind of weights I did before. So now I start feeling, well, maybe I don't want to go to the gym, because I feel like I'm using my little girly weights and stuff like that. But though that's one of the things that you've got to get over yourself, because the reality is, if you're not continuing to try to work on building muscle mass, your tissues are going to still continue to deteriorate. As you get older, there are no perks to getting older. I don't care if you get your discount at Denny's for the breakfast. It doesn't matter. You better continue to use your body, and you better continue to use your mind. Otherwise, they're both going to deteriorate on you, to the point that you're just going to have a very sedentary lifestyle. And then all you're going to be doing is watching life pass you by.
There's definitely no shortcuts when it comes to that. And the current thing that I'm seeing that I think a lot of people are going to realize when their health starts failing is this big kick up in the semaglutide for weight loss thing that I think Elon started talking about originally with the Wegovy. There's a few other companies that have come out of that, but it was, it's a diabetes drug that's used for insulin regulation. And somebody realized that, hey, when, doing some injection rounds of it, I don't know the dosing of it, that you start to lose weight. So everybody, you got folks that are lining up, you've got chiropractors, you've got a chiropractor or, internal medicine doctors that are starting up weight loss clinics now that are completely built on semaglutide. And people are not realizing that, for one, the long-term effects, who the heck knows? Because usually people with insulin regulated diabetes they're not getting better over a length of time.
Don't live long now.
Yeah, not off of the injection itself, but now people are losing weight, but they're realizing you're actually increasing in body fat.
Right.
But you're just losing bone density, you're losing
Muscle
soft
mass,
tissue,
yeah.
you're losing organ volume. It's like people are going to start dropping dead really quick here. Not to be confused with any other injections we might have been taking over the last few years.
I'm gonna go see a man about a horse. Be right back.
Okay.
Well,
Can you bring
well,
some of the
Doug,
numbers
we
for
can
you
talk
back?
behind Don. We can talk about Don behind his back here now. We'll just keep right on going. Yeah, just for all and the viewers.
Trying to get me
Don's not going to see anyone about a horse here right now. So, but no, and you said you've been in the field of this particular field for how many years?
Medical devices, about 8 years. About 8 years. But
Okay.
done spine, focused and worked with spine surgeons, orthopedics, plastics, burn, podiatry. And again, like mentioned before, a lot more wellness spas, performance spas, and plastic surgeons kind of under the same umbrella these days. Are a lot more of the newer conversations because a lot of people want to hear about non-traditional therapies. IEU, we were talking about, the hip and your hip and the problems you had and your experience with going down to BioAccelerator. I mean,
right.
Give a little feedback on your experience there and maybe the reasons why you went there based upon your previous history in the US.
Well, again, we'll just try to make a long story short. I was approached at the UFC by people that were associated with that particular company, and basically they offered me, would you like to get loaded up with like these millions and millions of stem cells? And I'd already knew enough about stem cells that it's like a rejuvenation type of thing. It's like dipping your toe into the fountain of youth. Who wouldn't want to do something like this? And I'm like going, sign me up, because well, again, I knew of others that had made the trip and they all had big thumbs up. Probably the best story about that is the story about Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes was a wrestler, got in the UFC, but then he also was driving his truck and got hit by a train. And he's lucky to have been alive, but he was actually in a coma for like about, I think, 4 months. And they didn't think he was even going to come out of the coma. He came out of the coma, and but by the time he came out of the coma, it was almost like he was an infant. He had to relearn everything about walking and talking. And I do believe, I don't know at what point that someone came and said, "Hey, let's get him down to Medellin, South America, and we're gonna try to just hit him with these mega doses of stem cells to see what it does." Now it worked a miracle for him. Fast forward to today, he's walking, he's talking, he's doing things that he could not do before. And then
with his accident, I'm not 100% familiar with it. It was all brain activity that was kind of limited, or also,
well, no, he was just a complete mess. Between what it did to him, traumatic brain wise, he had all kinds of swelling on the brain. Even today, you could tell though when he's walking, you know that something happened, but you don't really know what. But he's in a lot better place now than where he was. He was in a coma for, like I said, I think 3-4 months, something like that. They didn't even think he was going to come out of it, but he did. But then when he did come out, he was almost like an infant in a lot of ways. He had to relearn how to talk, how to use his hand control, the whole 9 yards. And then when he finally did make the trip down there, and they got the mega doses of all these stem cells, it really it improved his quality of life. And then we were talking about that. Well, we jumped on the more comical side. You got Mel Gibson, who takes his pops down there, and his pops goes down there, and then all of a sudden he's starting wanting to date younger women because he's like going, whoa, yeah, he's got yeah. certain things that haven't risen to the occasion lately are starting to rise up, and Bell's kind of like pops, what's up with that here? Okay, yeah. So kind of comical in that sense, but I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of what stem cells really can do, and the reality is, like, well, in Scottsdale, Arizona, is the only stem cell storage bank in the entire United States. So think about this. If Doug Wheeler at 20 years of age could have went in there and put some of his stem cells in this bank, and now when Doug Wheeler is 60, 70 years of age, and you're starting to have some problems, what better matchup would you get than to simply go back to this stem cell bank and go, hey, I want my circa 20-year-old stem cells injected back into me. Perfect match made in heaven. They're yours. It's going to match up perfectly.
Process came from, I think, umbilical cord blood originally, where
yes,
whenever mom's having a healthy C-section birth, you capture that umbilical cord and you put it in a bank and store it for a later day. You know, the thought is you don't have any donor reject issues or things along that nature. It becomes expensive though. I mean, some of those places are $200, $300, $400 a month, and you're storing that for 20 years.
30 years. Yeah.
Well, again, it just all depends. Like anything else, the more that you get out there, I mean, you usually prices start to come on down.
Now, you know? Yeah, and that's a great thing, that with the amount of exposure that those interviews that, you know, Mel Gibson talking about his dad anecdotally, you had another guy on Rogan, Roddy McGee. He's actually out of Las Vegas, and I think he had some exposure to some UFC injections and IVs and whatnot. There's a lot of attraction to see something else, because the US healthcare system, we're not, the biggest companies are not motivated to innovate.
Right.
I think about one of the largest medical device companies, if not the largest, don't quote me on market share, but Medtronic. Medtronic makes something for everything. They do spine, they do cardiology, they do pain, they do off-the-shelf items in every hospital. You go into the back room of a hospital, Medtronic or a B. Braun, let's say, is 90% of things on the shelf. If Medtronic comes out with something terribly new and innovative, let's say, for a knee replacement. Oh, let's say a hip replacement, because that sounds a little bit more on point right now. They come out with
come on now.
brand new hip implant that's made out of this really innovative material that's, biomechanically going to perform better than anything. They have to look back at all their legacy things that they've got 10 or 15 other hips out there, let's say, and nobody's going to use those ever again. And all that money that it took to develop that, bring that to the marketplace, do testing on, has all been lost, because you end up eroding away your potential of any of your legacy products being used. And you're running into that with the biggest companies that have the most amount of adoption into hospitals and or patients. So they're not motivated to innovate, because we're so chained to that insurance reimbursement landscape. And doing that, is largely funded by big pharma or big medical device companies that don't want new things coming to market. So let's say for your hip, if you're going to go see any one doctor, any specialist, any orthopedic doc, any internal medicine doc, there's only a few things that they have to try to help with the pain in your hip. Corticosteroids. So they're going to do a cortisone injection. That's usually their frontline option.
Yeah. Well, let me stop right there. But cortisone, although it will do the trick, it's like a Band-Aid being put on a broken leg, because it will do the trick in the beginning, but you can't go back repeatedly, because cortisone eventually just rots out that joint.
Right, eats it away. Right.
It's good. It's good for, like I said, a couple times go in there. That a lot of times that's what happens with football players, stuff like that. They'll just give them a cortisone shot. They're right back in on the next game or something like that. But then it's not doing them any. There's no real healthiness about it.
It's pretty
correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's the real point that they're seeing a lot of troubles with. Probably the most amount of injections, don't quote me on that, for any orthopedic is probably knees. And when people are going back to get a knee replacement because the injections haven't worked, they're opening up people's knees right now to do that knee replacement, and their bone, cartilage, everything is just melted. it's just seeing that long-term effect of those steroids over a long period. It degrades the joint. So, I mean, but some docs will say, 6 or 7 years, fine. Like, yeah, but you're going to do that for 5 or 10 years in a row because they're going to keep you coming back every single month. They have to bill your insurance every month. They're going to bill you for the procedure every month. If they're going to find you a solution and you never come back, you just messed up with their business. You messed up their business model.
Well, then you would have, I think, would have enjoyed being a fly on the wall because again, as we started off the conversation, I come to the conclusion that I have to have something done, and I can't just take a pill. I just can't take a shot at this point. The joint is gone, and so it's kind of like going. Now I'm looking for the best surgeon or someone that's very competent in what they're doing, and I want the best part being put in because just like you were saying, these parts have been improved over time. Different type of alloys and stuff like that are being put to them. And I'll use like Mark Coleman. Mark Coleman has had. I know he's had one hip. I don't know if he's had both hips done, but he's had at least one hip done. But his hip has come out of joint, out of socket, 3, 4, or 5 or more times. I'm thinking, whatever part he got put in, I don't want that part because there's not a good track record with it. So, and it's I forget the name of the part that they're putting into me because it's the some of my other research said that, well, whatever part that were current at that time, they were good for about 8 years for a 150-pound person. And I'm thinking, what's that going to do for a 250-pound man? Does that mean I get 4.5, 5? And is that just sitting around tea time? I go, no, I want to be active. I want to put that joint to the test. When the guy I've been speaking to, he says the newest part right now. Again, he was talking about how it's like encapsulated that it's like it's rated for 60 years. 60. And I go, well,
Are you around to dispute him later?
Well, no. See, but see, okay, Doug, you like this? I go because I said, well, Doc, I go, I'm 65, and one of my goals is to live to be 125. So 60, 65. I go, we're right there. I go, I looked right at him. I go, if you're still around, I'll let you know if the warranty is good. But again, a lot of that, and that being in the medical field, attitude goes a long way. There are times when you go back to the Vietnam War days and they're out of morphine to give different soldiers for pain, they were giving them placebos. Here, we got some morphine here for you. They were feeding them placebos. And like, okay, just give it another 5 or 10 minutes and it'll kick in on you. And like, okay. And they're literally, just by telling them that stuff, it was working on a number of different patients.
Antidepressants are the perfect connection there. Anybody that's had exposure to an SSRI or an SNRI, so that's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor or selective norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, how many, I don't know the percentage of people in the United States that are on an antidepressant, but I know from the back end, working for a big pharmaceutical company like Allergan, I launched a drug called Vibrid and another one called Fetsima. And you can edit out those names later. And you're looking at the data, and like you said, having a little bit of charisma, and the best surgeon or the best doctor is a good salesperson. And when they have salespeople around them that are showing them data and things that are changing from baseline and things that are going to get improved, there's a lot you could do with marketing material and not really be telling them the truth.
Right.
But I remember seeing most of that space. You talk about a placebo effect. I mean, there'd be 6% difference. Taking the drug has a 55% reduction in symptoms, or taking placebos at 49. And laundry list of side effects that you're going to have associated with it. It's all about the story you could tell. But that individual patient that's going to be told they need to refill their, antidepressant script every month is a gold mine to mine for later years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where and that's a tough part for a lot of patients when it comes to regenerative medicine, is there is the potential, not for everybody. Like, I mean, the things that you did in your life athletically, Dan, you know, the amount of wear and tear on your body from, you know, obviously being part of, you know, UFC and the professional wrestling world, like there's not many people that have that kind of wear and tear on their body.
Well,
So,
you know,
there's no
a
measure.
lot of the mental aspect that I have that's wrong with me. It's having association with people like Don Fry. You know, it just I can't. I mean, I've been abused and abused and abused for just decades. It's kind of like going, it's a wonder that I have. It's a wonder I have any self esteem anymore.
You have you have no reason to have self-esteem. Look at you, for God's sake.
But it's just kind of like it's like being whipped all the time. It's like going, I kind of like the feel of leather now, just strapping me here and there and stuff like that. Yeah.
He's
I
a
think I got
masochistic.
couple of websites I could forward you to if you
Yeah. He's got the mask, the gimp mask in the suit in the back there. A little
Dan can't wait for us to go back to masking here in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh.
To let the real BDSM out.
That's it.
Let's see it. I got one right here right now. This is actually one of the more comical little doctors at Mass. It's got, put that one on. It's like going, yeah. It's going like, yeah, there you go.
Gotta get a fake mustache on.
What do you think the uprising is going to be if U.S. starts to try to bring back in lockdowns? And I mean, you already got Kelsey, whatever the hell the guy's
Felty, or I don't know what it is. Falsey,
the football guy.
Oh,
Tate. That's already getting slapped up there on Pfizer. Got like 6 Band-Aids on.
Travis Kelsey.
What's he doing?
He's the new spokesperson for Pfizer.
What a fucking idiot. What a fucking idiot.
Well, that's what happens when you get sucked into with a demon.
Well, when he has a fucking heart attack in 6 months, well, he'll know.
Yeah, right. He's just going to take the money. He ain't going to take it.
Right.
Yeah.
I
just think that part of it just boils down to the fact that how does that old saying go? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So to me, it's like going. I think a lot more people will really start to question. They should be questioned right along. Doug, you don't know this, but I mean, when the pandemic was at its height, they were literally being our government was telling everyone to stay at home, don't get out on the roads. Only first responders, like truck drivers, people first responder type of things. Only truck drivers that really be out on the road. And they're saying that there will be state police or the National Guard will be at the borders of your states to either arrest you or to turn you back. At that time, I was in Michigan. I had to be in Arizona. So as I get in my vehicle and I'm driving to the border of Michigan, Indiana, I'm thinking, well, when I say I'm the only car, I am the only vehicle, period, on this road driving down. I'm thinking, I'm getting close to the border. Do I see any barricades? Do I see any police? Do I see any military? No, and no. I keep on going, and I finally start creeping up on the first semi-tractor trailer. And then as I'm driving up by him, starting to pass him, I look on up. He looks on down. He looks at me, and he goes, "Give him thumbs." He gives me a thumbs up. Toots the horn right there, and I'm like, beep beep, and like, well.
Did he have a mask on?
What's that?
Did he have a mask on?
No. Hell no. It's. I mean, but I mean, the whole purpose of was telling the story is that Americans are too easy to forget. The running meme at that time was it showed a family of 4. They were all hiding behind their couch, and they're all wearing masks. They're hiding behind their couch as they're peering around watching the TV.
Right.
But they're in the privacy of their own home, yet they're hiding behind a couch, all masked, watching the TV, and the TV's just still blowing about, do this, do that, do the whole 9 yards. And it's like going, Americans, that's one of the things that angers me about Americans, how forgetful they are.
Yeah, we're always.
And how quickly they move right on with their life of just what's the next Xbox game coming out? What's the next movie that's coming out? I mean, literally, they're just so frivolous, and there's more. There are people that need to answer And always, especially in the last few years, there are some people that have not answered anything, and you wonder about our legal system. You wonder about our political environment. You wonder about all this kind of stuff because we are living in some of the strangest of times, and we got billions of dollars that are going from our taxpayers to other countries to fund wars and to fund, well, they say war, but then it's like it all depends on what network that you listen to as to, are they funding the war or are they funding individuals? Who's siphoning off funds here, there? I mean, there's all kinds of finger pointing. The sad part is, whatever happened to fact checkers when you would say something wrong, that a fact checker would come back and say, you better change this and you better apologize and you better change this, otherwise you're now liable. And that's a shame that you have networks now that can blatantly lie to you.
I think Denzel said that years ago. Was on a red carpet somewhere and said it's, you as a new news organization, it's not your job to be correct. It's your job to be first. Just get information out there as long as it's information. I mean, we see that today. I mean, I haven't watched news in forever unless it's at the gym, but even between just your normal social media feeds, Instagram and maybe LinkedIn and a couple others, there's a new piece of groundbreaking shit that's happening every day. I mean, we've already, we go down the laundry list of places we've forgotten in the last 6 months. We don't even remember that Hawaii was on fire like 30 days ago, and there's no more Maui. Like, imagine people in the world that are potentially never going to go back to Maui. How is
look, they got $700 each over some billions over to fucking Ukraine.
But
yeah, but okay, but then look at how many trains have derailed in the last 6 months.
East Palestine.
And not only did they derail, they happened to almost like blow up certain communities a little bit there as well.
Yeah.
But I think the more inundated you can keep people with information on the day to day and keep people stressed and scared. I mean, there's a lot of experts that have identified it. I mean, they stop arguing. Nobody's going to stand up and say anything about these problems and these mismanagements of funds and decisions because everybody's scared and stressed the hell out.
Well, you got the FBI going to fucking school meetings, and writing down names, people.
You hear those the parents that are objecting to certain things that are going on within like elementary and high school. Put on like terror watch.
Yeah. You believe that shit?
You're gonna be a
but you got 7 million fuckers coming through across the border we don't know anything about, but they're spending their fucking time on the taxpayers who are worried about their children getting inundated, about what cut their dick off or something like that.
The puppeteers that are going on around the world, I think I said earlier, like the Black Rocks and the Schwab family, like they're controlling everybody. And until we can kind of disconnect, the right people can disconnect themselves from that machine and start trying to change it, we're fucked. It's going to be a tough next 5 to 10 years.
Unless we get President Trump in there, to go back and fix this shit,
Everybody every day, unless you're at, of course, that extreme, everybody's got their worries, but the amount and the percentage of population that is worried about if they're going to get to work and whether they're not going to afford gas in their car, if they go to the hospital. And I mean, I find this recently, I got hit in the head in the gym recently, had insurance, was feeling a little dizzy for the next couple of days. And I was like, I don't even want to go to the hospital. I don't want to go to the hospital because I'm going to get screwed with a bill. And I called a neurosurgeon friend and I was just like, what do you think? Like, what can I say for them to, actually take my insurance and just get seen and, not have to worry about it? Say it under this. Still 6 weeks later, I was in there for 45 minutes with a CT scan and I get a bill for $3,500. It was a $20,000 visit. And my insurance didn't pay for all of it. The amount of just to live your life, the amount of stresses that everybody has every day is going to tear us apart.
Yeah. What I mean, if more people want to learn about your specific medical field and stuff like that, do you actually have some social media? Like, is there a website? Is there a something that they can check out specifically for your company? And again, I'm trying to How do people get in contact with you?
Of course, we Olympic Surgical is the company name, surgical distribution group, and then focus on
You said Olympic Surgical?
Olympic Surgical. I kind of got this Greek thing going.
Olympic.
I got a son named Aries. I've got a son named Apollo. You know,
I see a theme right there. The methodic Greek, mythology is running really strong with you right now.
They tell some really good stories, but you can check out Olympic Surgical on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and then we'll be slowly building out a couple of new social media channels that, you know, will feed off each other, but either Instagram or LinkedIn, both under Olympic Surgical. Getting further and further into medical education and really just the new and innovative stuff. So, you know, again, trying to get away from the medical machine of crappy therapies and old, you know, surgical things that are antiquated and they're not doing patients very well. So talking more about, you know, spine when we're talking artificial discs or certain sorts of new injectables or new material implants for hips, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, again, the ironic part is all three of us here we're not people that are on the sidelines. We're all different people. You've had your own back surgeries and stuff like that. Don's had different types of things that's been done to him. I mean, I've had knee cartilage removed and stuff like that before. Other than that, this will be my first really surgery I've ever had, other than having my tonsil taken out as a child. That was about it. So
the more you can stay away, the better.
yes, stay healthy. Again, that's the whole aspect. Try to live a healthy lifestyle. Try to exercise. Try to eat right. I guess that really is what it boils down to: is try to do those two things. The only thing you don't control is the history of the health that was passed down to you, because whatever mom and dad have, they pass on to you. So,
well, I feel like it almost becomes a little bit of like, how do they say it in fish with like mercury, like bioaccumulation, like the more, you know, becomes the snowball effect of, you know, parents that start to not take care of themselves well, they end up passing that on to their next of kin, and it just starts to like build it up. And until we start taking a active approach and trying to just, I guess you just say, clear the crap out of our systems and try to, you know, redistribute our DNA in the right ways, we're going to get worse and worse. You see those, you know, those memes today of, you know, look at what a gym class looked like in the 70s or 60s, and look what a gym class looks like now, which all the kids are at home because there's no gym class anymore.
Well, small fat kids with the clothes still on, you know. Nobody dresses out for gym anymore.
Yeah, well, that's a bad part. Well, Don just hit the nail on the head. That if you go to a high school gym class or a junior high gym class, 25 to 30% of the class doesn't even dress out, doesn't even participate. How do they get a passing grade?
Mental health,
you know.
Right.
So it's and even I remember, again, the health class I had. Did the instructor or teacher really teach anything? No, not really. I mean, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger promoting the Presidential Physical Fitness Award. When's the last time you heard about that? When Arnold was around, okay?
I'm a big fan of Arnold. I wrote an MBA dissertation on just his life's work, and I loved it when he's governor. I kind of feel nice that he signed my undergraduate degree, not personally, but he was governor at the time. So
yeah, no, again, but that's where I always tell people bodybuilders are some of the most unhealthy people. I'm not just saying that to slam the industry, because they go on such a hard calorie limited type of a diet. But let's face it, all those muscles didn't come from just pumping iron now, did they?
Well, and that's the interesting new wave. I mean, now everybody's talking about peptides. Peptides is the new catchphrase. It was stem cells. Now it seems to be moving into peptides.
What are peptides, anyways?
You know, it's a liquid, typically injected form. You know, I guess you can take orally, but it is shortened length protein. A peptide just means a chain of a protein.
Okay.
So the thought is that they're identifying smaller molecules than proteins to be able to redistribute within the body. So some of the more popular ones are like BPC 157. There's one for neurogenic repair called cerebrolysin. You know, I think it is getting adoption a little bit too quickly because it's a really complicated subject. It's got to surgeon that sent me his cheat sheet, and it looked like you might be doing, you wanted to do the whole spectrum. You might be doing 20 or 30 injections a day. And I was like, it sounds a little bit confusing. So it'd be nice when there comes like a more educational platform on how to use peptides in the right way.
Right.
Like people right now are just doing it really willy-nilly because, you know, especially if you're talking about athletes, you know, TRT was a lot of times the big, you know, focal testosterone cypionate through a 21, 22 gauge needle on yourself. But
You take it subcutaneously or in the muscle or
intramuscular
wow.
TRT. So I mean,
and 23 gauge.
Well, I remember, we were talking about when I was heavy and divorced, like I identified, or when I got divorced, identified my testosterone was extremely low.
Yeah.
So I cycled for about 3 years, and it was daunting, that weekly time period when you got to sit on the toilet, and you always see in the movies like reaching around and injecting your ass. Like I can't reach like that, so you know, I'd have to sit on the toilet and put it into my quad, and that's a big needle, and half the time you're giving yourself a hematoma and your leg blows up.
Yeah, right.
And it's a pain. But now with peptides, you can do it through a diabetic needle. So you just do a little shot in your belly and it doesn't hurt nearly as much. So I think there's a big, so they're looking at, you know, maybe supplementing, and a lot of these bodybuilders, hey, we don't need to take your DECA, your Winstrol trend that's just tearing you apart. And these peptides are going to be more of a solution. Still got a lot of research to do. I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I'm the same way Don is. I just don't like needles. I could say I could have never been a drug user or stuff like that, because needles, it's kind of like going, just going to the dentist alone, and you see that long needle and they're trying to, you know, hit to numb you up. I'm like, Doc, if you slip, that thing's going out the back of my head. it's so long.
Not your
what I guess if I was to, you know, have a takeaway from our talk today, as far as a little bit of educational piece when it comes to regenerative medicine, there's two umbrellas that I don't think have been really truly identified or really explored, and a lot of patients don't know what they're paying for, they're getting. If I could provide any insight, is the difference between an autologous regenerative medicine, which means it comes from your body. Dan, you were mentioning earlier, you know, drawing blood, spinning it down, you know, putting it some other places. That's it's called PRP, platelet rich plasma.
Right.
And that's what is, when you look at, I'm guessing here, 90% of people's websites in A1 Mark, you Google search regenerative medicine in Scottsdale, regenerative medicine in Denver, Colorado. Any of those practitioners that you're seeing are 9 times out of 10 just doing PRP. It's very simple. It's been very widely adopted in orthopedics for a long time. It's still used in surgery. They actually don't, it came from surgery of using bone marrow. But the problem is if you're trying to pull bone marrow and hyper concentrate those cells, the patient's got to be asleep under anesthesia, because you can't get a trocar into your hip and get that drawn out unless you're down, or, you know, bottle or 2 of whiskey in maybe.
Right. I think going to the bone. Yeah. Anytime you go into the bone, there's some that don't feel good.
And you got to go deep too. You got to go 6 inches into the hip.
Right.
So you have to be asleep. And they would do that in the operating theater, where they'd take that bone marrow out of your hip, they'd spin it down the back, and they'd put it other places for other applications. And it's taking your hyper concentrated cells. But, you know, people wanted relief in the outpatient setting, into your doctor's office. So this was seen as a next best option. Let's draw it out of your arm, spin it down, you know, depending on however many times their protocol, and we could do it into your joint. We could do it into soft tissue. We could do it other places. So you've got regenerative medicine from your body. It's going to be usually bone marrow, PRP, or sometimes if you're going to a plastic surgeon, you might hear of adipose derived. So they're taking it from your fat. Usually just plastic surgeons do that because they're already doing a liposuction on you. They got a bunch of your fat laying around. They could spin it down. And then a hard step into allogeneic stem cells. This is why people are going to R3, to CPI and Tijuana, to Neil Riordan's place, Bioaccelerator, in numerous parts of Central America, is to get access to allogeneic sources. And I think Mel Gibson and his story of his dad was really the one that took that off. And I don't know for certain, but I think that they were being administered for a much higher cost, embryonic stem cells,
Right.
which come from a aborted fetal source. It's pretty highly contested. It's not legal within the United States because we're highly controlled on what we do with our fetal matter. And also abortion's a big, topic of conversation. But in other countries, and that's why none of them have really come to the US, is they don't have those rules.
Right.
Problem is that embryonic has it probably is at the highest tier level of healing potential. But the problem is it's hard to get fetuses. It's hard to cleanse them.
We were talking about that earlier. We can kill the baby, we just throw it away. You can't utilize it.
Only throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because we want to recycle plastic, plastic bottle, but we don't want to recycle the tissues from the healthy babies.
Yeah.
Why do something like that? Let's just toss it.
It sucks how much of viable things within our medical system are thrown away. But
I remember when I was in the 3rd grade and
no way.
Yeah,
you can't remember that far back. Come on.
Yeah, it's the first time I saw photos of aborted babies, in trash bags. I mean, I mean hundreds of them. Yeah, I was in the 3rd grade, and
were you smoking like Canadian cigarettes or something?
Yeah, I guess so. But it had a profound effect on me. But they were talking about these fucking kids up there at the U of A were having fits about seeing that on their way to school, or on the way going from class to class. I'm traumatized. I need therapy. Like, fuck, I saw that when I was in the 3rd fucking grade and I handled it. And you're in fucking college and you can't handle a photo like that. What the fuck are we in for?
Yeah, I gotta say, Don, the times have changed in so many different ways. What was allowed in school system? I mean, okay, what happened to the Pledge of Allegiance?
Right.
I was in, I was in school.
It got replaced by let's take your dick and put it on her, and take and take her parts, tits, and put it on you. That's what we're doing now.
Yeah,
it's the unfortunate pleasure during COVID. When you're running a surgical business, you make money when surgical implants go into people. So you make your money, unfortunately. And when there's no elective surgeries going on, it's kind of hard. You got to survive. So I started working with more trauma and calf surgeries. And one of them in Las Vegas, there's a guy at one of the major medical centers there that is priding himself on being the only transgender reconstructive surgeon in Nevada and trying to be the #1 in the United States. Thought it was funny because, again, I go into the operating room. I was representing a dermal reconstructive graft for burn patients at the time. So there's a lot of people getting burned during COVID. And he thought it was funny to trick me into saying that he needed my company's resources and tissue in his transgender reconstruction cases. And I'm trying to think, I was like, I don't understand any purpose on why you'd be needing that. I'm a professional individual. I'll show up. I'll try to support the patient, the surgeon as much as I can. He thought it was funny to bring me in and have me watch those procedures taking place. And it was, I will never forget it.
Yeah.
And like you say, and as brutal as it is, it's a surgical knife going right to your dick, and it's coming right off. It's just a lot of cutting, folding, and splicing.
Wow.
It is rough to watch. Dan, I can set you up for maybe a view in, maybe a Zoom call into the OR.
Well, might be for the first. Maybe it would be what do you call that when you have those really exclusive type clubs? We'd have to do that.
The wife swapping clubs.
Well, no. I knew I was asking the wrong person on that one right there. Yeah.
You've got lifestyle written all over you. It's mostly the mustache, i.e. flavor saver.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh.
Well, I mean, I don't need to have to abandon ship, but I do have to abandon ship here right now. I've got I'm hoping to get on the road here in the next short period of time. Starting to make my way back towards Arizona, which again, 1,850 miles. I have a few kiddos and some grandkiddos I need to go see here real quick before we do that. But Doug Wheeler, I mean, I really enjoyed having this conversation, but just simply just to learn more about what actually goes on in a lot of these surgical type of rooms. And there has to be a company or someone that goes there and to simply know that each doctor or each surgical procedure has certain basic requirements, and you represent a company that supplies these different types of packets, knowing that this is what all the tools. They may not use every tool, but these are all most of the basic tools that they will utilize for hips, knees, arms, shoulders, and the list goes on of all the things that they may be doing with that. But I'll let you, please throw out your social medias, contact information. If there's any other doctors that might be watching, it's like, I need to get that company on board with us.
Yes. I was going to make a little joke there on there's like the amazing.
Please do.
To patients while you're asleep. All the wonder of everything that's going on in the background, but can't thank you enough for having me, Dan. Again, it was the first chance I had to meet you at Olympia and having you tap me on the shoulder, and I just freaked out. The Beast. But again, thanks for having me. Doug Wheeler, Olympic Surgical, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Questions, concerns, you can always shoot us a DM on there if you're going through something challenging from a medical perspective, you need a referral, some 10,000 foot advice. We have MDs on file for peer-to-peer calls. I always have to include the fact that I'm not a doctor, so everything that I've said is anecdotal. I didn't go to medical school, but I'm very happy to be where I am.
Well, I thought that you should have went with that line. I'm not a doctor, but I stayed at what was the hotel chain line? But I stayed at
Crown Plaza.
Yeah, I don't know.
Holiday
There
Inn-
was
Holiday
always
Inn
a hotel
Express.
line that they said, I'm not a doctor, but I stayed at whatever the hotel chain was. It's like going, oh, that okay, qualified you to become a doctor. Yes.
I'm not a doctor, but I did work for Four Seasons hotels before. So,
Oh, see, there we go. There we go.
Slip it in there.
Doug Wheeler, it's been a pleasure. Mr. Frye, it's been another one of those times. It's been
my
real.
pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure seeing you again too, Severn.
Yeah. So I'll sign off. You guys just keep right on it
I'll
going there.
just count the seconds till you're in Arizona. Holy
Yes, you can. All right. I'll see you guys. Take care.
bye-bye, sir. Thank you for watching another episode of Dan and Don's Toxic Masculinity. You better like, subscribe, and share, or I'm going to come to your house.